everyone, my name is Eve. This is Eve's Book Nook. I am here today to do the Booktube Newbie Tag to get things kicked off on this channel and get you to know a little bit more about me, or help you to know a little bit more about me. I have 11 questions in front of me. I'm going to dive right into them to get things started. Question number one is, why did you start this channel? I actually started the channel a couple months ago in a slightly different format, so you'll see that there's a few videos that are created before this one, if you sort chronologically. I was gonna kind of do a headless horseman thing and just have it be flat lays in front of me, but then I realized all of the videos that I love on YouTube, Booktube specifically, are more interactive. I'm looking at the person that is talking about the books. I feel like I'm having a dialogue with them, and it's a lot harder to do that when you can't see their face. So why I started this channel, to get down to the nitty-gritty of it, I want to have a forum where I can have a community of book lovers that have similar book interests to me. I'm already in 2 great in-person book clubs with friends of mine, but in both cases we don't really read books that I would have sought out for myself, which is not a bad thing. I think that book clubs are there, if they're a good book club, to challenge you and force you out of your comfort zone, but hopefully I can create a community here that is within my comfort zone in terms of reading taste, so that I can offer suggestions and also find books that I know that I will like, based on content, genre, writing style, all that jazz. So that's the goal here. Question 2, what are some fun and unique things you can bring to Booktube? TBD on that front. I think I'll let everyone else be the judge. I do think I have a very wide reading taste. I don't just kind of channel or tunnel myself into one genre, which is not unique necessarily, but I do think that most of the channels that exist today tend to be very heavily focused in YA and fantasy and romantasy. YA, or maybe new adult, is probably a better way to describe it these days. But that tends to be, at least what comes across my algorithm, the vast majority of Booktube channels. And no shade in that, I like those books too. But I do think that my reading taste, which you'll see actually in my next video, pretty decently represented with a book haul, tends to be a little bit broader. So for those of us that are mood readers, in a genre context, ranging from classics to romance to fantasy to sci-fi to historical fiction, literary fiction, the works, I do read pretty broadly, and so hopefully I'll be able to find other readers that can find comfort in this channel for that reason. Question 3, what are you most excited about? I feel like this is a little bit redundant for this new channel, maybe because of the way that I answered the last 2. But I think I've said already. I love talking about books. I love, obviously, reading books. I like owning books. I think they're beautiful and decorative in many ways if you're buying generally newer published books. But I've said it before, I'll say it again. I'm looking forward to creating a community. And maybe part of that is entering into already existing book communities, but carving out my own little zone with my own passions in mind. Why do I love reading is question number 4. It is one of the few things that can genuinely hold my attention for an entire day. It is a true passion of mine. It has an escapist quality in a lot of cases, but I also like to challenge myself with reading. I don't just pick up books that I know I will enjoy. Sometimes I pick up books that I think I will learn from. Learn about myself, learn new words. I think that, I might be fluent in the English language. It's my one good language, but even someone that's fluent still always has more words to learn, and I think that you can become a wordsmith as a reader. I love becoming invested in a story, feeling like I'm a part of a story. If you're in a really good book, especially a fiction book in particular, I'm saying here, a really good fiction book, you forget that you have a corporal form. You are a part of that book you have to, when you come out of it, you know, to take a break, grab a glass of water, something like that, you feel like you've broken a tether. And I love that about reading. It's so immersive. And as I said, it's one of the few things that I, as an individual, can really stand to focus on for hours and hours and hours at a time. I always have joked, you know, people are like, oh, if you're going to a car dealership, you're going to spend 4 hours there. I'm like, great, I'll bring a book. And they're like, oh, it's going to be miserable. What are you going to do the whole time? You're going to be so bored. I'm like, no, I'm not. I'm bringing a book. There is no such thing as boredom if you have a good book in your hand. Number 5, what book or series got you into reading? Obviously there's childhood books and series. The ones that come to mind are, when I was really little, Junie B. Jones. I loved that series. She was so mischievous and quick-witted and snappy and sassy, and I feel like that's how I was as a child. Harry Potter, you know, that was a series that really captured my attention and made me love the idea of reading along with the reading itself. That was the first like book community like I felt like I was a part of, you know, staying up late and going to Books A Million or Borders at the time to get that new release right when it came out. That was the first like book fandom I participated in. As an adult, I kind of re-emerged as a reader during my senior year of college when I was postponing writing my senior thesis. I hadn't done a lot of reading beyond the summers. I almost never read during the school year in high school and college for leisure reading. Or really, frankly, for class reading either. Let's be honest. But my senior year spring semester, I was supposed to be writing a thesis. It was just draining, and I was like, I just want to read something. I was watching One Tree Hill, and I was reading. And I actually picked up Wuthering Heights on a whim. I don't remember what the catalyst was to pick that up. But it reminded me of how beautiful literature can be. Kind of a dark book, not necessarily one that I recommend to everyone. I understand why most people prefer Jane Eyre, but for me, Wuthering Heights was the creme de la creme of the Bronte sisters novels. I had already dabbled in classics in the Austens in prior years, but that really was like, wow, I've challenged myself to a classic, something that's older, gothic, and if I can do that, why can't I pick up something maybe a little bit lighter, a little bit fluffier? Once I got my first full-time job, I was able to take an hour lunch break, and I would usually just kind of cut loose from our break room and go to somewhere else, you know, sit outside and just read for an hour straight during the day. Discovery of Witches became a series or trilogy I really loved. I've only read the first 3 Outlanders, but Outlander. I don't actually know if that series has a name beyond Outlander, but those first 3, Outlander, Dragonfly, and Amber, and Voyager, spectacular. Agatha Christie, The Poirot, and Miss Marple, not really a series. They are, but they can kind of function as independent books too. Those are the main ones that stand out to me as kind of reigniting my love for books. 6, what questions would you ask your favorite booktubers? I will put 2 or 3 people. I can think of 2 right now off the top of my head that are booktubers that I love. A Book Olive and Books Like Whoa, who are 2 of my favorite booktubers right now. Life Between Words, Katie, she hasn't posted in a while, but she's been a spectacular booktuber for a number of years. I know she's busy with young children, but I've engaged with her channel quite a bit over the last decade. So between those 3, what questions would you ask your favorite booktubers? What would you recommend for me? I feel like the whole premise of a booktube channel is to encourage others to read books that you love in some case, or that's one of the reasons people have channels. So maybe recommend one in particular for me that you think I would like based on the things that I've mentioned here. All 3 of those booktubers, I have sought out their 5-star reviews, picked up a couple for myself, and generally across the board, I'm totally in agreement with them. Number 7, what challenges do you think starting a booktube channel will be the hardest to overcome? I think part of posting online, posting on social media, having a face in lieu of the sort of flat lay form I was thinking about doing. There's sort of a fame whore component to it, right? Like, I'm a ham. I won't lie. I don't dislike attention. And I think one of the difficult things about having a channel that is in the public forum, and I can't say from experience here, but I'm assuming, is being able to handle negative criticism, to handle disagreement with grace and not take it personally, and also to not base your success of a booktube channel based on views or based on likes. Because in many ways, this is to document myself and my own reading journey and see how I've changed and be able to reflect back in a few years, assuming I'm consistent, which is probably the other main challenge, consistency, and be able to, you know, like I said, to see my own growth. But I think so often when we see those numbers, likes and dislikes and views and click-through rates and all that jazz, we start to assume that those numbers equate to worth, equate to quality, and that's not always the case. Sometimes the algorithm just kind of shows up on other people's pages, and I found really spectacular channels that only have, you know, 30 subscribers. There's obviously great ones that have 30,000, but they're not the sole quality booktubers. And so reminding myself that, you know, if I want to grow a channel, so be it, but it does not have to grow in order for it to be worthwhile to an individual. Number 8, when did you start reading? I feel like I'm a womb to tomb reader. Like, I think I've always been a reader. My parents really encouraged it. They're readers themselves. And so I grew up in a place that fostered a love of learning. But as an adult, I reignited, like I said, my love of reading my senior year of college and into my first full-time job, which I was in for about 6 years. It was a flexible enough job. It afforded me the opportunity to read on my lunch. And then I had a commute where I read, at that time, just physical books to and from my residence. So I had probably a 40 minutes round trip plus an hour lunch. And then sometimes if the book was really good, I kept going into the evening too. Number 9 is, where do you read? I'm in my back room, my family room of my house. This is definitely one of the places. I would say the other place that I read is in bed. Over the last decade or so of post-collegiate reading, I mostly have read physical books up until about 2 years ago, when I discovered the magic that is the Libby app, which is a library rental app, if you're not familiar. And I have an iPad, so I was able to download ebooks, and then I dabbled in audiobooks too, although that's not my main form of reading. I would say I'm still reading text most of the time. But my ebooks I read in bed. I have an infant son, so I read in the rocking chair if he's sleeping on me. But most of the time it's in this back room that I'm filming in right now. Number 10, what kind of books do you like to read? There is a glare here, so I'm not sure how much that reflection will distort the kind of books you can see on the shelf. Maybe I'll zoom in and kind of allow, can I? No, I'm not talented enough with technology to figure that out. I read mostly fiction. I would say that probably 90% of what's on this shelf is fiction, although I do listen to nonfiction on audio. At this point, I feel like I'm only trying to physically purchase books that I genuinely think that I will enjoy and possibly give 4 or 5 stars and potentially read again in the future, because I've got a lot of books here. As you can see, I read a lot of mystery, not so much in the way of literary fiction, but classic fiction, which I guess is gothic mystery. I don't know, what do you even qualified classics. I guess a lot of classics are actually historical fiction themselves. I do like fantasy, but it tends to be the low fantasy that I enjoy more than high fantasy. Low fantasy being like set in today's world, but with magical components, sort of like a Harry Potter, as opposed to would Avatar be considered fantasy, or is that more sci-fi? But you get the idea, like a different world. What else do I read? I read a lot of romance, but I don't have as many physical copies of romance because most of the time I rate a lot of romances only 3 or 4 stars. It's rare for me to walk away and be like, that was life-changing. I love reading it, but it's not usually something that I own physical copies of. Let's see, what else do I have in front of me? Yeah, I would say like fantasy, mystery, thriller, and some classics. That's my go-to. I don't know why it took me so long to answer that, as if I have not looked at all of my books in forever, but that's the case. Okay, and then there is an optional question, number 11, which is, what does your book collection look like? I'm only mentioning this because obviously you can kind of see it here. This is probably about 95% of the books that I own. I do probably still have like 15 or 20 at my parents' house, which I moved out of 5-6 years ago, but they're still there. And then I have probably about 30 books or so in my bedroom, in various states of disarray. My nightstand has like a little shelf. I admittedly have some just like on the floor in a pile, which I probably should not have. And then there's like a few little baskets around our house that have books too, but like 95% of them are here. And I will eventually, when I'm feeling up to it, do a bookshelf tour and really take you through. I'll make it kind of a longer, probably unedited video, and just like actually pull out every book and show it to you. Because I'm lazy with editing. I've edited videos before, and I'm frankly not interested in making jump cuts to every single book when I could just pull them out, show you the cover, put it back in. So one day that will happen, but this is the bulk of my book collection. It's 2 Billy bookcases next to each other with the glass panels, glass doors. And then you can kind of see here, this brick is a fireplace with a mantle. On the other side of this fireplace is an identical set of 2 Billys, which hosts the majority of my husband's books. I probably won't do a tour of that right away. We have very different book tastes. He is a historian and PhD in history, and so most of the books that he has are more academic presses, which obviously are very scholarly and impressive, but they tend not to be what I gravitate towards. There's probably about like 20 books on his bookshelf that like I would actually be interested in reading at some point, and so maybe one day I'll do a little tour of those. But we keep them segmented because just our tastes are so different. It would be like impossible to find our own books without our own sense of organization. We've both been, we were readers before we became a couple. And so our collections existed long before our marriage or our house did, or our home did, I should say. Anyways, that is 18 minutes. I was expecting it to be closer to 10. I'm a babbler, so I apologize on that front. It's more of that from here. But that was the Booktube Newbie Tag. I hope you enjoyed. If you did so, please leave a comment. I'd love to get to know you all. If you're interested in subscribing, I welcome it. If you want to like the video, please do so. No pressure, but more importantly, I would love to start a conversation. So please do let me know if you see any books in this little like non-glaring section that you would recommend. Most of what you can see here are my unread books. The red ones are up above. So let me know, and keep me posted if you've got any books that you're loving right now. I'd love to look them up. So thank you. All right, have a great day. Bye.